Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Monday, the 2nd of September, comes to you from London. And we saw the dollar kick up on Friday, and we're just holding on to those gains this morning. So we're now sitting at multi-month highs, actually really looking back now on the index, back to levels that we've seen more than 2 years ago. So the dollar looking very strong indeed after a strong week last week. So it's all about dollar strength. And that, of course, means that the euro is weaker against the dollar. So we're seeing Eurodollar plumbing new lows. And against the yen, the dollar is holding its strength here on the short-term chart. Medium and long-term, the yen is actually still stronger than the dollar. Sterling falling back against that stronger dollar, and of course political turmoil still weighing heavily, was falling back towards 120 mark, or 121.50 this morning. And against the euro, we're seeing sterling actually climbing a little bit, so euro has come off a little bit worse. And against the Swiss franc, we see here again sterling is actually holding its strength. So euro is falling a little bit, as Swiss franc is falling a little bit in sympathy with the euro. Bitcoin still sitting below the $10,000 level, back into short-term bullish territory, but the medium-term chart is now a bit of a worry. So quite hard to call Bitcoin. Looks like it's running out of steam, having reached this sort of $12,500 mark. It's now pausing for breath, and we haven't really made a full transition to bullish on that long-term chart. The S&P 500 index had a relatively good week last week, so we are still sitting in bullish territory on all three time frames, holding on to that support level on the daily chart. The same on the Nasdaq, holding on to support, and the Dow was up slightly as well, just holding on. Looking a little bit like a triple bottom here. I like the way that shows up a little bit more clearly in the lagging line than it does in the price, but it does look like we have almost like an inverse head and shoulders. Looking at the Russell 2000 index, we've struggled to really get back into bullish territory here, and so this is still the main worry for the US market. The futures this morning, the S&P future down 0.2% and the Nasdaq E-mini down 0.25%. So it does suggest at the moment that the US market will open slightly lower. We are seeing actually European markets looking better this morning. The UK market up 0.5%. The mid caps in the UK up 0.2%, but looking bullish, and entering back into bullish territory on the daily chart. So that's looking a little bit better. And if we look at the DAX, not yet bullish. Again, this head and shoulders, inverted head and shoulders pattern, sort of just showing itself up a bit here. That's the height of the head. So we should see markets continuing to go a little bit higher. But we're looking better on the DAX this morning. And if we look at the CAC 40, much the same picture here. The Japanese market was down overnight. Still bearish medium and long term, bullish short term, and the Hong Kong market was down 0.5%, still bearish in all three time frames. Of course, turmoil weighing heavily there. Looking at the Chinese market, Shanghai was up 1.3%, and the Aussie market was up 0.7%. Not yet recovered to medium term bullish there. Sorry, that was the Sensex in India. The Aussie market actually looking much better, up on all three time frames. Brent crude sitting below the $60 mark, fell away pretty heavily on Friday, and opening much lower this morning. So we are seeing a fall there, and WTI much the same picture, falling away on Friday and now just sitting bearish below the cloud. US nat gas sitting at $2.28, fairly steady there. Gold sitting at 15.22, so it's pulled back from this 15.50 level which it touched on Thursday. So gold is just looking a bit short-term weak at the moment, but the medium and long-term charts are stellar. Silver continuing to hold its strength, so this is bullish, whereas gold is slightly bearish. And if we look at 10-year yields, we're sitting at 149.94, so back to that 150 mark. Really yields sitting in the doldrum there, which means that German bond prices are holding their strength as well. So that's quite key. Looking at individual stocks, on Friday we had this data coming from Yahoo Finance, so just ranking by performance. Walgreens was the best performer. They were up 1.5%. On the downside, we had Cisco Systems down 1%. That chart really looking quite dire, having dived away this last couple of months. So Cisco massively underperforming, and 13% downside targets there. So still not looking great. If we look at the Nasdaq on Friday, the best performer was Western Digital, up 4%. We saw Dollar Tree up by a similar amount. Chart's not yet bullish on the long-term chart though, so we are seeing a little bit of um, a change there. Ultra Beauty was down 30%, so that chart just fell out of bed completely. And Alexon Pharmaceuticals also fell much lower, so not great there either. Taking a look now at the Aussie market, the best performer, Speedcast International, up 23%. Not enough to change the picture here, though. This chart looking very dire. Western areas also recovering, looking quite good on the medium-term chart now. And Independence Group up 10%. That chart looking amazing, making new highs there. On the downside, we've got Inset Tech, Pivot Limited, they're down 4%, and Appen Limited down 3.3%. Chart's still looking pretty good there, though. In India, just a quick look at the Indian market. The best performer was Yes Bank, but this has been, of course, the worst performer many times over, so no real change there. If we look at the downside, we've got Parati Infotel. They were down 3%. That chart's still looking pretty worrying. A lot of these charts in India are now looking pretty bearish. If we look at the European markets now, we start with the FTSE 100. The best performer this morning is NMC Healthcare. They are up 1.7%. Just starting to look like they might be making a recovery. There's the relative. We haven't really seen a cross up through the relative yet, so a bit early to say. TUI up 1.6% after their announcement last week. Still, the chart looks pretty terrible, but it's now a takeover play, so that's done. And looking at AstraZeneca, that's looking much stronger, up 1.5%, so looking pretty strong there as well. On the downside, we've got Marks and Spencer Group. They're down 1.5% this morning, and HSBC Holdings also down. And Direct Line Insurance, that chart plumbing new lows, falling lower as well. So a little bit of a worry there too. Looking at the 250 now, we see the live pricing coming in here from Yahoo Finance. Amiga Holdings the best performer, but the chart looks dire. St Modem Properties up 3%. This chart looking a bit better, though, that we haven't really fully recovered on the medium-term chart. If we look at the downside, we've got Sentiment. They're down 2%, although the chart is actually looking like a recovery. Clarkson, not such a good chart, falling away there. Taking a look at the top 50 in Europe now quickly. Intesa, they're up 1% this morning. CRH also up. And that chart just starting to look like a break out of this sideways range, so looking a little bit better there. On the downside, we've got Amadeus IT Group. They are down 0.8%, and Adidas down by a similar amount, but the chart's still looking pretty good. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.